Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Goodrum Show with me, Chris Goodrum. As per usual, a big thank you to everybody that watched last week's episode of the show, liked, commented, all that kind of stuff. Your support was really very much appreciated. Just before we start, just a quick notice. The last month's whiskey evening went down an absolute storm. It was a world whiskey event, and the next month's April's will be back to Scottish whisky, so if you're interested in joining us. I don't quite know exactly what we're planning to do. I know that we'll be allowed to reopen the shop on the 12th of April, assuming of course there's no change in the road map, as they say, so I'm not entirely sure whether we will be hosting one in the shop that month, or whether we'll probably leave it till the next month or something like that. I don't honestly know as yet, but we will definitely do one. Anyway, on to this week's episode of the show. As you probably remember, a few weeks ago, I did an episode of the show on the Isle of Raasay Distillery, and the lovely people at the distillery kindly sent me samples of all the component parts of the inaugural or the first release, or the release, first core release anyway, as you can see, those lovely people at Lindores Abbey have sort of done the same kind of thing. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to Murray Stevenson at Lindores Abbey for sending me the samples. Now, as you can see, I'll obviously introduce the range when we get there, but I haven't got effectively an end product, if you see what I mean. Now, as yet, there isn't, as far as I'm aware, there doesn't seem to be quite a timetable as yet in place for the first commercial, or shall we say full release to the general public, and I don't know whether that blend has been put together. Like I said, I've got the component parts, but I haven't got a kind of an end product to say, look, this is what the end product is going to be like. But what I can tell you, however, is that the first bottling that's due to be done is going to be a members club only bottling. It's for the 1494 Preservation Society, and of course you can become a member of said club. Just costs you 500 quid. Now you might think 1494, it's a bit of an odd name, and yes, it's going to be limited to 1,494 members, and that's the number of bottles that will be released of this special first release, and each bottle will have its membership number on. And the reason why they've called it the 1494 Society is that according to the distillery, there is evidence that the Aqua Vitae was produced at the Abbey from that date. I mean, it may well have been earlier than that, because I believe the Abbey itself was either founded in 1191 or 1178, so it could have been earlier than that, you never know. But according to the distillery, I assume that they have some form of historical record dating back to 1494. So anyway, so that membership of the society is still open. I don't know exactly when the bottling is going to come out, but you can join up on the Lindores Abbey website. Obviously the information will be in the box below. Now, apparently not only do you get obviously the first bottle, you also get a complimentary bottle of the Aqua Vitae. You also get a welcome pack with membership goodies, and you also get complimentary tickets to the Lindores Abbey bear burning ceremony. Oh, that all sounds a bit Wicker Man, doesn't it? It's like bear burning. I'm assuming that no real bears burnt during this ceremony. I'm sure it's all sort of possibly not quite so Wicker Man, but maybe sort of I don't know, pagan and all that kind of stuff. Sort of Morris dancing and sort of men in funny. Yeah. Anyway, I have no idea, but it sounds interesting, shall we say. So basically, yeah, like I said, so if you want to get your hands on the very first bottling, and I'm afraid I don't know what the composition of said bottling is going to be. I'm guessing they're going to be using spirit from the 3 cask types that I have here in front of me. So yeah, like I say, if you want to get your hands on the very first bottling, then obviously you have to become a member of the Preservation Society. Anyway, so the distillery itself is built on the Lindores Abbey farm. Now, the farm, I believe, was purchased by Drew Mackenzie Smith's grandfather in 1913, and the distillery itself first started production in sort of December of 2017. So all the samples I think certainly of the spirit have been distilled in 2018. Now, from what I believe, from sort of around about mid 2019, the barley was sourced from 2 adjoining farms, and I'm assuming that that's now how it's going to be. Obviously, the barley that was used for these particular samples obviously was bought in. But again, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I like the fact that the Abbey is, or the Lindores Abbey Distillery is very much into the sort of the preservation of the Abbey site itself and the surrounding areas, and you know, it's all very holistic, which is really cool. And I think I'm right in saying that this was the last distillery that the late Dr. Jim Swan worked on. So obviously, you know, he probably forgot more about whiskey distilling and what have you than I ever known. I would imagine. So you know, I think we'll have no issues with the quality of the spirit somehow. But I think it's going to be cool to have a look. And like I said, it's a very big thank you to the distillery for allowing me to have this peek behind the curtain, should we say, as not very many people have got the opportunity to do this. And as far as I'm aware, this may well be the first review of the Lindores Abbey spirit in its entirety on YouTube. So cool. Yeah, that's really nice. So anyway, I think that's probably enough waffle. All of these samples, apart from the Aqua Vitae at cask strength, so it's going to take a while to work through them, and I have full butt of water. Yes, plenty of water in my butt here. So yeah, let's have a look at that. Right, okay, so we're going to kick off with obviously the new make spirit. This is obviously as it comes off the still. It is 63.5%. Now, apparently they do the usual. The fermentation time for the wort is relatively long. It's about 114 hours, so we should theoretically be into the sort of tropical fruit element of the spirit character, but we shall obviously see. Apparently, they take the middle cut slightly higher than normal, by sort of like 1 or 2 degrees. So I think they take it around about sort of 75, 76 as opposed to 73 or 74. Run it down to again about 66, which is there or thereabouts the sort of the norm. I think the norm is around about 65. So although they are taking a slightly higher cut, I'm guessing that, you know, it's going to be a fairly sort of standard style of spirit. But obviously we shall see when we get to the tasting. Second sample is obviously the first of the 3 cask types they're using. Like a number of other distilleries, they're using a selection of American oak, STR casks and sherry, and the blend will obviously be, I would imagine, predominantly American oak with, you know, a judicious, hopefully, use of the other 2 casks. So now this is a single cask sample, because they've kindly written the cask number on the label, 167, and this is 61.7%. Like I said, distilled in 2018. Sample drawn, I would imagine, this year, so about sort of 3 years of age, almost at its legal point, shall we say. The next one is the STR cask. Now, no cask number on this, so I don't know whether it's just from a single cask or whether it's from a vatting of a number of STR casks. Casks, as far as I'm aware, are ex-Australian Shiraz casks, so could be interesting. And the Oloroso Cherrybutt. Now, again, no cask number, so maybe a single cask sample, maybe a batch. I honestly couldn't tell you. This has been bottled at 61.58%, I believe. So yeah, plenty of alcohol here. This is going to be fun. And finally, like I said, we're going to look at the Aqua Vitae again. Now, you may well remember from last year I did a sort of a general kind of roundup episode of the show, which included the Aqua Vitae. So this is 40%, and you're probably wondering why the Fever Tree Ginger Ale. Well, the distillery kind of included it in the package, and I believe that you have to put that in there. Now, as you well know, I am well known for my cocktails and blending. I think not. So yeah, we'll see what happens when we get to the end of the show. Like I said, why not? Right, okay, so let's kick off with the new make. As you know, I'm a big fan of tasting new make. This is the DNA of the distillery. This is, you know, what sets the basis for the entire character of the whiskey, assuming you don't swamp the thing in first fill Oloroso. But anyway, let's see what the new make gives us. First off, really clean. I mean, it is minerally. It's almost got a real, almost a kind of like a real glacial freshness to it. There's virtually no fusel oils, which I suppose is obvious, because obviously this is the fairly high cut. There's no real faintiness, there's no real so that I mean, that is a great spirit. I mean, that is really clean, really fresh. I'm getting a little bit of pear drop. It's got an edgy sort of barleyed kind of character. It's not a real tropical monster. It's got a really nice balance between the sort of cereally kind of notes, and there is an intimation of tropical fruit. I mean, there is, you know, fruit there. It's not like it's, I mean, if it had been what 70-hour odd fermentation, something like that, I would have expected obviously a lot more intense cereal. So we're moving away from some of the cereals, starting to get into the sort of the realms of the tropical fruit. There's a little bit of strawberry Turkish delight, you know, slight Mari kind of note, but the overriding sensation is how clean this spirit is. I think this is going to be interesting to see what it tastes like. I mean, what's that? 63.5%, and yeah, okay, you can taste the alcohol, but that's really well integrated. That's amazing. It's got a lovely spiciness on the finish, which is obviously being helped by the intensity of the alcohol. A little bit more cereally on the palate, a little bit more malt biscuits. It obviously doesn't have a huge amount of flavour development because of the high alcohol. There is an intimation of apricot and maybe a little bit of white fruit possibly. But what I'm just really impressed about again is how clean the spirit is, and you know, how well contained that alcohol actually is. It's not really kind of ripping your throat out. It's dangerous. Anyway, so we're going to put a little drop of water with it and see what that does to it. Now it's emphasised the sort of a sort of herbal note. It's got a almost kind of celery kind of character. It's a little oily. There's a slight soapiness, which I'm not sort of upset about. It's also emphasising the fruit esters as well. I'm certainly getting those sort of green apple. And it's also got a slight chalkiness as well, which is quite intriguing. I'm not sure where that's coming from. I mean, it could well be the water. Could be a sort of a terroir kind of note, possibly. I don't know. It's all I can say is it's really quite complex, fresh, clean. And I don't know whether you can still purchase this, but I know they initially were selling the new make spirit. So I mean, if they still are, and you can pick up, say, maybe a 5cl bottle or something like that, really worth trying. Let's see what that's like. Maltier, biscuitier, slightly sweeter. There's an almost honeyed character. Really mouthfully. Again, that herbal green apple skin sort of character is coming through right on the finish. A little bit of pepper as well, possibly. Beautiful spirit, absolutely beautiful spirit, it has to be said. And I think it's got a lovely balance of sort of cereally weight and fruit, and I think that's going to sort of mature sort of absolutely amazingly. And that's certainly got, I think, sort of plenty of years to be able to get under its belt. But even so, at this young age, that is really, right. Okay, so let's move on to the Bourbon cask sample. I think it's a Hoggy, so 61.7%, and again around about 3 years of age. Now that freshness is still really evident. It's got a kind of, again, I'm getting that sort of green fruit. I'm getting that sort of celery kind of note, citrus. Almost kind of mint as well. It really is fresh. Yes, there's some vanilla underneath that. The tannins are a little gritty, but still quite soft. There's grass, there's heather, there's barley, a little bit of butter, a little bit of nutmeg. I mean, I know the distillery are not planning to release it wholly in American oak, but please do. That's gorgeous. Yep, there's a little bit of strawberry Turkish delight as well, just to remind you this is young spirit. But again, no faintiness, no off notes, no roughness. It is just fresh and clean and absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, like I said, and 61.7%. I mean, yeah, you can smell there's a bit of alcohol there, but again, all really well contained. Let's see what the palate like. Again, herbal, minty, cucumbery, green apple, fresh. There's a touch of vanilla from the oak. It's got an almost pastry vanilla kind of character. Obviously the alcohol is pretty noticeable. It's pretty short, it's masked, but again there's some lovely bourbon-y spices coming through right on the aftertaste, and a little bit of tannin. That is gorgeous. That is absolutely gorgeous. Let's put a little drop of water with it and see what that does to it. A little bit more oak influence now, a little bit more vanilla, but it's still fresh, still green fruit, still minty. It's a bit of lime, a little bit of icing sugar as well, but the oak is a little bit more noticeable now. You've knocked down the alcohol, but again, it's really well balanced. That's what that's like. Again, minty, herbal, fresh, quite barley, bit more oak character. It's got a nice weight to it, and almost meatiness there right at its core, where all the sort of barley and the sort of green fruit and sort of minty fresh notes are kind of working around. I think that is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, lovely. Okay, so let's move on to the STR cask. So this is 60.84. Let's see what those give us. Right, a lot of cask going on here. It's winey, it's chocolatey. It's got a sweet sort of cinnamon kind of spiciness. There's demerara sugar. There's a little butteriness. Black cherry, black pepper, a touch of vanilla. I'm not getting a great deal of the distillery character, the spirit character, it has to be said, at this moment in time. I mean, maybe if once it was given a few more years, the cask influence would maybe settle down a little bit, but right here and now it's adding, this part of the recipe will be adding that sort of chocolatey warmth, and sort of herbally kind of dark fruit notes. Interesting. Let's see what passes on. Again, quite winey, chocolatey, quite tannic, taut. This is going to obviously add some additional oak structure to the final blend. The oak is biting and bittering a little bit on the finish, and again that's quite masked and mouth-watering. The alcohol is certainly more noticeable, so I'm guessing, being again like we discovered with the Rassay, obviously a wine barrique bigger than a hoggy. So you know, it's less surface area to spirit. It's going to take a little bit more time to sort of, you know, find its equilibrium, shall we say. So at the moment it's a little less evolved, but again the spirit is quite clean, so it's not like it's fusel or fainty or what have you, but it is very intense. So again, I think sort of judicious use of the of this particular cask is going to be needed. Right, let's give it a lot more toastiness. Slightly dampen down the wininess, but I'm still getting the black fruit. There's also less tannic as well, which is a good thing. But again, it's going to add that sort of lovely warmth to the final spirit, I think. So the pass one. Again, less complex, although I am getting a little bit of green fruit notes coming through on the finish, which is obviously the spirit just kind of coming through. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't have tasted it in, you know, in its raw state. Again, sort of winey, chocolatey. It's very much cask orientated, this particular sample, and like I said, it's when they're putting it together, you know, just a smidgen of this, I think, would be enough. Right, okay, so let's move on to the Cherrybutt. So this is 61.58%. Let's see what the nose goes on this end, shall we? Again, very sherried, very much about the cask. Intense, herbal. It's not a dark, grippy, tannic monster. There is some tannins. It's adding some dried fruit. It's got sultana, touch of straw, a little bit citrus. In actual fact, I'm getting a little bit of grassiness. I am getting a little bit of spirit character coming through on this. I don't know whether this is a first fill sherry, but I'm guessing probably not, because, like I said, it's not a huge sherry monster. Yes, the sort of like the sherry is noticeable. There's coffee, there's tannins, and there's dried fruit. But again, there's not it's not overwhelming. There is still a semblance of the spirit coming through on the nose. So again, they can probably get away with using just a smidge more of this particular cask on the final blend. So pass on. The cask notes are actually quite subtle. I mean, yes, there's the dried fruit, the sultana, a little bit of spice, citrus, soft tannins. It's gentle. Is that the bear? It's actually allowing the spirit character to come through. I'm getting a little bit more of a tropical note kind of coming through right on the finish. Again, there's a little bit of spiciness, but that's probably being emphasised by the alcohol. There's obviously a little bit more scope for using a good dollop of the sherry matured spirit. Let's see what a drop of water does to it. You know, that's kind of knocked away a lot of the oak character, and the spirit feels a little rawer, which is quite surprising. It's kind of more raw cereal. I mean, it may well be that this was just the peculiarity of this particular batch or this particular distillation, but it is a little rawer than the new make spirit sample. Anyway, let's see what the pal's like. The palate likewise, the oak has kind of dropped off quite noticeably, but then there wasn't. It was quite subtle to start off with, so you know, putting a little drop of water is going to do that to it. Again, there's some dried fruit. There's a little. It's got a nice juiciness to it, and like I said, I think it's going to sort of work really nicely in with the other two casks. So yeah, again, not too bad at all. Right, okay, and finally we're going to finish with the Aqua Vitae, which I suppose is probably quite apt. It's a palate cleanser sort of thing, isn't it? You know, so it'll be interesting to see how much of the new make character I can kind of pick up on this, because this is now bottled at 40%. Not a great deal in actual fact. It's more about the botanicals. It's quite sweet. There's a honeyness, fir, aniseed, sort of pine needles. Quite lemony as well, that sort of lemon verbena kind of sort of, you know, the sort of slightly more fuller kind of sort of lemony kind of flavour, a bit like sort of lemon meringue pie filling rather than sort of sharp sort of like lemon citrus. Yeah, I mean it's pleasant. I mean you know, I can take or leave Aqua Vitae and sort of liqueurs and all this kind of stuff, but again, you know, I'm getting a little bit of the freshness of the spirit kind of just in the background, but the emphasis is pretty much on the botanicals, on that kind of character. So pass on. Full, herbal. Again, lemon verbena, sort of cider apple-y kind of note coming through. It's a bit of spirit, but again, it is pretty much all kind of geared towards the botanicals. There's a little bit of cinnamon, pepper maybe, sort of mid-palate finish. Licorice root, bark, bitter spice. I mean, it's a pleasant drink. It's not something I would want to drink all of the time, but it is actually pretty pleasant at the end of the day. Anyway, we're now going into cocktail mode. Well, as cocktail mode as I'm ever going to get, and we're going to add a little bit of ginger ale to this. This is a first for the show, it has to be said. I don't think I've ever use ginger ale on the show in its never. I don't particularly like ginger ale anyway, but this is how you're supposed to serve it. You're supposed to put ice and not a slice, well, yeah, ice and a slice, but I guess bit of orange peel. Apparently that's the signature serve for this, and it's okay. I mean, yeah, I can certainly get the Aqua Vitae character. I can smell ginger, a lot of ginger. Funny that. Yeah. See what the pals like. Yeah, ginger. A lot of ginger. Not so much of the actual character of the spirit, in actual fact. I mean, yeah, right, there's still a little bit of aniseed there. There's a little bit of the lemon verbena kind of note. It's got a fullness, but it's pretty much ginger. So it's, you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. You know, if you're going to drink it neat. I mean, you know, obviously if you're going to put ginger with it, it's just going to taste a lot gingery. You know, but there you go. Let's sum today's episode of the show up, shall we? Right, okay, so putting aside the cocktail, let's talk about the spirit. I mean, okay, so I think it's first off, like I said, the most important thing and the most interesting thing to me was the new make and how fresh, crisp and clean it was. Quite citric, lots of green fruit, green apple, touch of tropical fruit, some nice malted barley, malt biscuits. Like I say, it's an all-round a really good spirit. In the American oak, oh my god, that was divine. That was stunningly good. I mean, it just sort of brought out that sort of, you know, that green citrus fruit and green fruit. It added some vanilla. I mean, you know, I loved that. I mean, as you well know, I love my American oak finished spirit. But that really was very, very good. The other two samples were pretty much, like I said, they were all pretty much about the cask. The STR cask was pretty dominating that spirit. But like I said, you know, blend it in. It's going to add a warmth. It's going to add a chocolatey, malty kind of note. It's going to complement it quite nicely, I think. And the sherry, I think there's more scope to play around with a bit more of that, because the sherry, I'm guessing, is refill sherry casks. It seems to be a lot more subtler. It's going to add a little bit of dried fruit and a little bit of spice. And so I think that the end product is going to be really intriguing. And like I said, I think, well, I would hope, given how clean the spirit is, how intriguing and complex the new make spirit is, and how lovely it is in American oak, that is going to be the kind of the focus of the spirit. Yeah, add in a little bit of the STR cask to add some warmth and chocolatey notes, and a little bit of the sherry just to add some dried fruit and a little bit of tannin, a little bit more structure to the whole thing. Yeah, I think it's going to. I think the key is going to be how much of these two, and so I think probably the key is going to be how much of the STR cask is going to end up in the final blend. Is going to basically determine really how they're planning to set their stall out. I'm hoping that they're setting their stall out more down the American oak route to basically say, look, the spirit is this is the spirit, this is how good it is, how fresh and crisp and all that kind of stuff. And you know, just be judicious with the other two casks. But I guess we'll see in due course, and hopefully in the fullness of time I'll end up with a sample of it, and obviously I've got none of the component parts left, but you know, we'll look at it back then. And like I said, I mean, I love the spirit. I think the spirit is absolutely great, and it's again a big thank you to the distillery and to Murray for kindly sending me the samples. Hopefully I've done them justice. Hopefully I've not said anything I shouldn't have said. And like I said, you know, if you want to get your hands on the first bottling, then you're going to have to join the 1494 club. get your tickets to the bear burning. Yes. Anyway, until next week, I haven't got a clue what we'll be doing next week, but hopefully, well, I won't be burning any bears or burning myself, if that matter, I guess. Until next week, all that's left to say is good afternoon and good ramming.